Welcome everybody to the Captain Spot. I'm your host Justin Freeman, 6'1", 275 pounds of fantasy knowledge. It's Monday Night Football, Week 16. We don't have many of these things left, guys. We got to start making some money before the season's over. No better slate for us to do it than right here on Monday Night Football. Bills at Patriots. Bills favored by a full touchdown. Bills by 7 in this game with a total sitting at 46 right now. It's kind of be interesting in sort of a weird showdown-y type of way. We'll get into the specifics of that. Overall, not a game I would stay up and watch late at night. Otherwise, probably you'll take the night off and get some sleep. But with showdown, this is actually a pretty unique one to attack. Let's look at the injury report first, where we're talking about not much of note here for either team. Tight end Reggie Gillum out for the Buffalo Bills. Tight end Jordan Thomas out for the New England Patriots. Neither one of those guys was hardly on the field in the first place. John Brown will be coming back off injured reserve, eligible for this game here for Buffalo. Barring any unforeseen setbacks, he looks good to go. The Patriots injury report is like a mile long. They all are listed as limited, questionable, except for the one guy, Jordan Thomas, who's out. So overall, theoretically, anybody on the Patriots could not suit up. But it looks like everybody's clear, healthy, ready to play. We're talking Cam Newton. Looks like Damian Harris will be coming back off missing last week. He should be ready to rock and roll in this game, getting sort of a feature back role and duties in the New England offense. So why don't we hop right on into the pricing here, guys? We'll start with our quarterback position, and I think, just sort of the first peg on the board to figure out is obviously Josh Allen, quarterback for the Bills, $12,600 to get him. The comparison on the other side, $9,000 for Cam Newton. And what's funny, I think about how my own take on Cam Newton has evolved over the course of the season. He came out hotter than fish grease to start the season. I was like, oh man, Cam Newton belongs in the Pat Mahomes tier. I'm buying in. I've got 2 feet in on my Cam Newton takes. And then he sort of regressed, and he's popped back up, and he's had weird blippy games over the course of this season. And if you could time it right on Cam Newton, he's been a pretty profitable player to play. But the question is, what do we expect from this version of Cam Newton in this game against Buffalo? Touchdown underdogs in this game. He just lacks a lot of weaponry, and Cam himself as a thrower has not looked the same ever since that Seattle game. I believe it was back in week 2, if I'm not mistaken. That was a shootout game, unbelievable game, and really since then has sort of fallen off. But Josh Allen, on the other hand, 12-6 has looked phenomenal. Had a little brief moment in the middle of the year where sort of was starting to look like maybe the rust was starting to show on Josh Allen, but has powered through that and has been just a fantasy force over the last month of the season. And 12-6, I think he's got to be a priority item for you. If you're fading Josh Allen, I guess the reason you're doing it is you're just thinking you get bad Josh Allen in this game. New England, you're playing the Bill Belichick coaches up the best weapon on the field narrative, right? Where Belichick just says, we're going to find a way to shut down Josh Allen's running and make him stay in the pocket and beat us deep. But the problem is, Josh Allen's been somewhat comfortable doing that this year too. So I just don't think you can really afford to fade Josh Allen. I guess the theory here behind fading Josh Allen is we know Josh Allen's ownership is going to be 90%, 95%, something like that in this game. His captain ownership is going to be through the roof. So if Josh Allen does fail, or the flip side there, or if Josh Allen has a good enough game, but not enough to pay off his salary because so many other mid-price guys are popping at the same time, that's where you could potentially consider fading Josh Allen. What happens if Allen plays reasonably well? He throws for 2 touchdowns, but he has a pretty weak rushing day, has 200 yards passing, for example. Well, he gets 8 points for the passing yardage there. Another 8 points there for the passing touchdowns. That's 16. 16 is not a bad number, but it might not be enough to pay off 12-6. If one of his touchdowns was to Stephon Diggs, and now you needed Diggs, and you also needed John Brown or whoever else, and then the Patriots side kind of went off as well, and you needed all those guys. You could potentially get sort of priced out. That's about the only other way. So sorry to spend so long on Josh Allen, but I think it's important to consider why you could theoretically fade him, even though he's the safest play on the board. So that covers it for quarterback. Obviously we're just talking wide range of outcomes there for Cam Newton, but this isn't a terrible matchup for him against Buffalo. Buffalo's been a good team, but overall, defensively, they've let up a lot of yards in the passing game and running game for that matter. So not anything we're like afraid of from a defensive matchup perspective. On the running back side for Buffalo, it's just really tough to figure out. These guys, Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, they're priced almost identically. $200 more for Devin Singletary, $7,600 versus $7,400. And these guys have just sort of rotated duties over like the entire season as long as they've both been healthy. It's been really tough to figure out. And I honestly do not have a read on what to expect from these guys moving forward. The only thing I can count on is that Singletary will be the more involved guy in the passing game. The rushing game usage has been back and forth, and it's been slightly tied to game flow, but not as much as you might would think. When the Bills get a lead, they do tend to go a little bit more to Zach Moss. It's like if you told me somebody in this game was going to have 15 rush attempts, I would say that's going to be Zach Moss, not Devin Singletary. However, if it's going to be something more like 10 carries versus 5 carries, the 10 guy could be Singletary in a game. So there's a really wide range of ways that this could potentially pan out. It makes each of them really difficult to project and have sort of a wide range of outcomes there. But obviously, if you're playing Zach Moss, you're playing a little bit of the Buffalo ahead game script. I'm just not super interested in either of those guys. More interested in Damian Harris, $8,400 over on the New England side. Sort of the big red flag with Damian Harris is the number one goal line running back for the New England Patriots is Cam Newton. It's not a running back, right? So overall, you got to carve out some of that red zone usage for Cam, which weakens the ceiling for Damian Harris. But, Harris could be a guy that just sort of busts some chunk runs over the course of the game. They want to give him 20 carries, no doubt about it. Sony Michel will be a part of the offense, but I don't think he'll be enough of a part to, consider playing. And James White, if you're playing him for his pass game role. Like I wouldn't project James White for more than 3 carries in this game, but he could have, 6 or 8 targets in this game. So that's sort of the game script rationale for why you'd play those guys at $6,200 for James White, $7K for Sony Michel. So he's completely priced out, not interested at all in Sony Michel. Looking at the passing game options for each of these teams, to stay with New England here for a minute, Jacoby Myers is the guy, $7,200. He's on the field all the time, runs a ton of routes, has one of the best target market shares in the league. Like you think about Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hills and these guys, we're talking Jacoby Myers is in the same league as these guys in terms of how many targets as a proportion of the team's targets that he sees in his own offense. It's just an elite number, north of 30%. So he's going to project for high 20% of target market share in this game. And I think he's worth it. I think it's worth trying to find a way to get Jacoby Myers in this game, $7,200 to fit him in. I think it makes a lot of sense to do that. You can pair him with Cam. The problem is there has been so few passing touchdowns available for the Patriots this year. Has been a real thorn in their side. They cannot find a passing touchdown to save their life. So you could either say that that's just the way they're designed, or maybe they're due. Maybe they're due for a touchdown. You figure it out. You get to be the person who makes the lineup. So you do whatever your gut tells you to do there. But looking at some of the other options there for the Patriots, we've got Damiere Byrd, $4,000. N'Keal Harry, $3,200. That sort of rounds out the rotation of guys that we have at our disposal. Other than that, we want to try to eliminate all other passing game options. We're not interested in Dante Moncrief. We're not interested in Gunnar Olszewski. We're not interested in any of the tight ends. Just go ahead and I know the tight ends are tempting and they're on the field a little bit, but just say no to tight ends for New England. Looking at the passing game options for Buffalo, obviously Stephon Diggs is going to be a guy we're really interested in. $11K for Stephon Diggs. Cole Beasley is priced up this week at $10K, and John Brown, who is returning, we'll get him back for $2,800. That makes him super enticing. Now, we don't know exactly what role John Brown will be running in this offense when he comes back, but we know that it should be at worst as the number 3 in this offense. He'll go back ahead of Gabriel Davis, who costs $5,000 here. And, I think we're obviously, we know Stephon Diggs is going to be force-fed 30%. We talked about some of the elite alpha wide receivers in this game. Stephon Diggs is right there as well. $11,000 is a priority item for me this week. Cole Beasley at $10K is going to scare away a lot of people. The only reason you consider playing Cole Beasley is for ownership. If you think just like there's no way anybody else in their right mind is going to play a $10,000 Cole Beasley, well, hey, maybe that drives down ownership. Maybe you get him at a bargain. So you could certainly consider playing Cole Beasley on that sort of logic. Dawson Knox, $5,600. Has started to see more volume here recently, but I think with the addition of more personnel coming back at the receiving core, sort of limits the ceiling there for Dawson Knox. So why don't we take a look at the captain allocations here this week, where it's my guy Stephon Diggs, who barely grades out as the winning captain here, just over Josh Allen and then just over Cam Newton. And then we've got Jacoby Myers right there. So we've got sort of a four-person race there for optimal captain here this week. You can certainly consider all those guys. And, you know, it's not a done deal that it'll be one of those, but they certainly look the best here right now. And then as we look at the flex, obviously our top two players in the flex are our quarterbacks, followed by Stephon Diggs, Jacoby Myers. Remember, we talked about him being a great option here this week, soaking up targets. Damiere Byrd, James White. So there you get the passing game usage there for James White. John Brown, there he is at a discount, popping up right there. N'Keal Harry, Cole Beasley, Damian Harris. So yeah, Harris grades out a little bit worse than I would have thought in this simulation, but overall, you know, maybe it's sort of favoring the passing game over the running game here for the Bills defense. But hey, you got the information you need. It's Bills Patriots. It looks like it should be a fun one for us to approach here in Showdown. Don't forget about your defenses and kickers. As always, make them a part of your portfolio. Play a couple lineups. Make sure you stay live all night long. I think that's at least the most positive EV fun way to approach the slate. That'll do it for me here this week. We'll check you guys out in week 17. We'll wrap up this season. Good luck, everybody. See ya.